October was supposed to be all chills, thrills, and maybe a surprise 5-star or two. But instead, everything was just fine. Though to be fair, most of them were still page turners. So stick around and let's talk about it. Hello friend, welcome. You might notice things look a little different around here. The channel name change is something I've sat with for a while. It's my way of letting go of some of the pressure to be who I was before everything shifted last year. Shortly after I started this channel, my family went through a terrible loss. And honestly, hiking and trail running just hasn't been doable in the same way since. But reading and the escapism of disappearing into fictional worlds has always been my constant. So it felt right to officially shape this space around that part of me that's still steady. And with that out of the way, let's talk about my October reads, where every book can honestly be described as just fine, but still worth talking about. I started the month with The Forgotten Kingdom, Book 2 in Signy Pike's The Lost Queen trilogy. The first book had me totally invested, the atmosphere, the relationships, but this one just didn't live up to that. It's set around 573 AD and follows Langoreth, who's imprisoned while her family's scattered by war, and her brother Lilikin, who's exiled to the mountains, eventually becomes the figure we'll know as Merlin. It all sounds fascinating, right? And it definitely had me hooked in the first book, The Lost Queen. But in this one, we're switching back and forth between multiple perspectives, and for me, it completely threw off the pacing. I kept finding myself confused and honestly kind of detached. The first book builds up a relationship between Langoreth and Melgwyn, only for him to basically vanish here in book 2. I had to push myself to finish this one, and by the end, I was like, I'm good, no need to go on to book 3. I may change my mind down the road, but that's how I feel right now. Still, Pike's writing is beautiful, so I landed on 3 stars. Great storytelling in this one, 0 intrigue. Next up was Don't Believe Her by Nicola Sanders, which I'd put squarely in the middle of her thrillers that I've read. Not my favorite, not my least favorite, but entertaining. It's about a woman whose fiance's sister returns after disappearing many years before, when she was in her teen years, except our main character is pretty sure this woman isn't really her. I loved the is she unreliable or is something actually off tension here. And it had that fun kind of predictably unpredictable vibe where you think you know what's coming, but it still manages to twist around. The atmosphere could have been stronger, and the fiance drove me nuts. One minute he's loving and supportive, the next he's tossing her under the bus. And our main character, bless her heart, but she's basically handing everyone around her ammunition instead of being strategic. It made me want to yell at her many times, but I will say I was never bored. This one got 3.5 stars from me. Then I picked up Irreversible by Jennifer Hartman and Shelley St. Clair, which starts in this dark, high-stakes situation. Our main character is being held captive and starts communicating through the wall with another prisoner named Isaac. Think of The OA a little bit here if you've seen that show on Netflix. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. The first half had me absolutely hooked. The tension was so well done, and I was fully invested in figuring out what was going on. But a huge scene shift happens. I want to say it was about halfway through, and then the second half just completely lost steam. The pacing dragged, it felt too long. The climax felt surprisingly flat, and some of the characters' choices and motivations were just kind of confusing, to say the least. I didn't love where the romance went either. I was kind of hoping for the same addictive chaos I got from Consequences by Aletha Romig. Side note, did you ever read that? I think it came out in the early 2010s. And it was absolutely wild. Anyway, yeah, this didn't quite get there. Still, I was curious enough with this one to keep turning the pages until the end, and so I gave it 3 stars. All right, the next book that I read in the month of October was These Summer Storms by Sarah MacLean. I went in expecting a rich people drama beach read, since it's about an estranged daughter coming home to her family's private island for her father's funeral, where she and her siblings have to compete in this inheritance game. And I love a dysfunctional family setup, so I thought this one would be a blast. Unfortunately, it ended up feeling more like a slog. Everyone was insufferable and not in a fun Succession style way. The romance felt rushed, very insta-lovey, and then forced. And I just didn't care who got the money or who may or may not storm off dramatically. It's one of those books that's marketed as impossible to put down, but I found it very possible to put down. And it was sheer curiosity of how the author was going to wrap this one up that kept me going. Again, decent writing. I believe that this author typically writes in a different genre. Maybe I would pick one of her books up again. So yeah, a solid 3-star read. Then came Intercepts by TJ Payne, which I actually did a whole separate video on because it fascinated me. And I really went into that one hoping that I was going to be so scared I had to sleep with the light on. It's about a government facility experimenting on people to unlock hidden mental abilities. Basically, extreme sensory deprivation to push the human mind to its limit. It's creepy, and I loved that it tied in real life mind control experiments. It made me think more than it made me fearful, which was a huge letdown given that I went into it believing that it was going to terrify me. Still, the writing was sharp, the pacing was solid, and I really liked our main character Joe and the moral grayness of his choices. Not a happy ending here, as could be expected, but still a satisfying one. I gave it 3.5 stars. And then we switched gears completely because I decided I wanted to go cozy a little early. Normally I save that for November and December. And I did that with Wild Eyes, which is book 2 in Elsie Silver's Rose Hill series. I'll be honest, I picked this one up because I was seeing the last book, book 4, all over the place. And I had a little FOMO, even though I hated book 1, Wild Love, which I spoke about in my worst books of 2024 video. So imagine my surprise when I actually enjoyed this. It's small town, found family, and the chemistry between Skylar, a country singer trying to escape her family and bad press, and Weston, a single dad and horse trainer, totally worked for me. I couldn't have cared less about the celebrity angle, but everything else hit that cozy, feel-good note that I was craving after a streak of darker books. I gave it 3.75 stars, which for me, considering where my expectations started, was practically a miracle. And because I enjoyed it as much as I did, I closed out October with Wild Side, book 3 in the Rose Hill series. And I liked that one just as much, if not maybe a smidge more. It's a marriage of convenience setup between Tabby and Reese, who are introduced to us, I think, for the first time in book 2. I have to be honest, I remember nothing of Wild Love at all. Anyway, Tabby and Reese have some serious bad blood between them. So this one leans enemies to lovers, which usually isn't my thing. I typically don't enjoy romance books that start off with our love interests hating each other and being mean to each other. Go figure. So yeah, at first I was skeptical because their dynamic felt cold and combative, even though they're now raising a little boy together. But once the book digs into Reese's secretive career and why he's so closed off, the emotional layers started coming through. The slow burn really worked, and by the end, I was all in on their love story. Plus those same small town cozy friend group vibes from Wild Eyes really carried over into this one and shined. I really looked forward to picking this one up. It was like perfect cozy warmth for those like cold, dark nights as we shifted into the fall season. Even though I enjoyed it slightly more, this one's still a 3.75. It didn't quite get to the 4-star mark, but that's okay. I still obviously enjoyed it. So yeah, that was October. Not the most thrilling lineup that I thought I would have. I really did think I was gonna go full horror and thriller and mystery this month, but I just really did lean into mood reading. And even a month of just fine books is still time spent doing something I really love. If you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts. And if in your reading month you found more highs than I did, I could use some good recs heading into the end of the year. So please drop them in the comments. And thank you for being here through all the changes and new beginnings. Reading has always been my constant, even when everything else feels uncertain. And having the space to talk about books with you means more than I can say. Here's to stories that ground us, even when they're just fine. I hope you're doing well and that you're enjoying the fall season, and I'll see you again soon in the next video. Bye!